Well, we are going to talk about the rest of the draft picks from the sphere. Yeah, we're going to talk about picks 66, 68, 79, 100, 182, and 214 on this episode of Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
You're Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jason JD Hernandez. I've been covering hockey for well over a decade, and this episode is brought to you by the Gametime app. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So as I've mentioned, I've been covering minor league hockey for over a decade, contribute to Defend the Nest, which is going to have a lot of work in the coming days with the draft, with signings in the minor leagues. Not many signings or hardly any signings on the Duck side, but we'll talk about that later tonight or tomorrow. But in the meantime, we got some draft stuff that we got to talk about. Part 2 of a two-parter. So let's get right into it. Let's get into the draft picks that I haven't really talked a whole lot about yet. Huzzah. At number 66, we got Maxime Massé. Now, this is a kind of curious pick to me because I do see a lot of upside in Maxime's game. In fact, I see a lot of upside in his game. Excuse me, folks. What I liked about this pick was that it was another solid, I guess, right-handed shooter. The Ducks can never have enough right-handed shots. As far as the right wingers are concerned, this is a solid one because Maxime Massé is probably one of the best, if not the best forwards in the Quebec League. And he came from Chicoutimi. He averaged over a point a game, 75 points in 67 games. Just a solid all-around player that does project to be in the NHL, albeit at a bottom six role. But there is projections that he could crack an NHL roster at some point, maybe not in the next couple of years because he's still young. But I could totally see Maxime cracking an NHL team, maybe the Ducks in 3-4 years. As far as some of the stuff about Massé, he's got an elite shot, one of the better shots in this draft, and certainly the best shooter out of the QMJHL. Just some other things about him. Shot is good with a bit of a physical edge to him. He's got a bit of a toughness to him. He's 6'1", about $181, but it looks like he's a little bit bigger than that. It looks like he's been working out in the gym a little bit just from recent film. But he does have just an elite shot. He is a shoot first, but he's also very good at those slot passes, very good at just getting those hard, perfect passes right to where he wants. And he looked very good in Chicoutimi. I think he's got a solid career in the NHL if he keeps up this trajectory. He is expected to go back to the Quebec League this coming year to really work on his game. If he's already averaging a point a game in the Quebec League, then he could do even better than that next season. He could be one of the dominant players in the Quebec League next season. He did win the Michael Bossy Trophy, which is awarded to the best professional prospect in the QMJHL. So he's already got that trophy under his belt. He's already got enough skill to make it. Now, if there's any knock on his game, it would be puck handling. Not as much of a puck handler as other players. Hockey IQ is good. Skating is good. The controlled exits could use some work, but I think one of his best assets is skating off the puck and making sure to find himself open off the puck. And because of that, he should be able to find open lanes. He should be able to find himself open and get a clean look. And I think that's a part of his game that probably got overlooked a little bit by some scouts. And that's something that's important. You need to be able to have that good hockey IQ. You need to be able to look around the rink and not just be stagnant, not just stand still. Even though his skating is not elite, I mean, he is a good skater. And because of that high hockey or like the good hockey IQ, he can find his own spots. He can create his own shots. That's always an upside for someone like Maxime Massé. At number 68, just a couple picks later, the Ducks selected Ethan Procision. This is also just this was a curious pick to me. I would say curious because I didn't have him drafting quite so high, but he did play with the North Bay Battalion from the Ontario League. Very, very big body, very physical player, 6'2", a buck 90, just a power center. Now, when you think power center, there is a certain player that I know some Ducks fans are going to go right to. No, nothing like that, not yet. But that is his main game. Is he's got some good hits, good physicality, very good at drawing penalties, and he's very good with his stick. He does steal the puck effectively, and even though he is a slow skater, he doesn't feel the need to like whack around with his stick or take dumb penalties, which is very good for a player of his size and his sense. Passing's good, puck handling's good, physicality's his best. Skating he's got to work on. Shooting he's got to work on a little bit, but I still like this player. I still like his slot passes. I still like the fact that he hits, but with a purpose. And he's not afraid to get into those dirty areas, which I think is important. This really is a Pat Verbeek, Greg Cronin kind of draft pick that the Ducks got here. It really is. And because of that, I would say this is a fine pick. This is a fine depth piece for the San Diego Gulls. I don't quite know if he can make the NHL. There's a lot to work on. He's got to work on the shooting and he's got to work on the skating. It did rank fairly low, but you got to have faith. A lot of guys have come into the league that were not elite skaters and they went right to work, got a skating coach and wound up doing okay. I do see him eventually winding up with the San Diego Gulls, and they could always use a big body. They could always use someone that has the right idea. All right, we're going to step aside and head to the first intermission, and I will talk about what I think is probably one of the bigger steals in that third round. We will get to that on the other side. And now a quick word from the Gametime app. And folks, if you haven't used the Gametime app, what are you waiting for? Because the Gametime app lets you get the lowest price tickets for the last minute games. And you know what? It's a dog days of summer. You could go watch baseball games in Anaheim and San Diego. You could watch them take on the best teams in the major leagues, or you could see the Dodgers take on pretty much everyone else. And with Gametime, you can find last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. You could get the views from that seat, folks. It is so easy to use. I use it a lot. So go to Gametime right now and create an account. Use the code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDON NHL for $20 off. That's the Gametime app. Download it today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez. This is a two-parter. And I talked about Beckett Seneca, Stian Solberg, and of course, Lucas Pettersson in the previous podcast. And now we're rounding out the rest of the 9 draft picks that the Ducks made in this year's 2024 NHL Draft from the Sphere in Las Vegas. And before we get into the next picks, I got to tell you, it was so much fun getting to go out to the Sphere. Getting to cover the Ducks on here has been tremendous. And also getting to meet some of the other Locked On hosts, as well as the fans. I'm sure you've seen the video a couple of videos ago where I talked to a lot of fans, some of whom have been listening. You guys are just all tremendous. You're all awesome. So once again, thank you all so much. So let's get down to the rest of the picks, shall we? This, I think, is going to be probably one of the biggest steals in the third round, and someone that I do think could wind up in the National Hockey League, Tarin Smith. Now, when he was still on the big board at number 79, I saw his name still on the best available. And I thought to myself, wow, like he just keeps falling. I thought the Ducks would get him at 68, to be honest. I really, really did. And then they didn't pick him. I'm like, okay, like that's fine. So he kept falling. 69, 70, 71, got to 79. He's still on there. And the Ducks went with the best player available, and that was Tarin Smith. This is a solid depth pickup. Could he crack the Ducks roster? Time will tell. He is one of the best puck handlers in this draft, but he is also so raw. Left-handed defenseman, 6'1", 176, played with the Everett Silvertips of the WHL. I definitely have some contacts in the WHL, so I'll be picking their brain a little bit as the summer goes on, talking about Tarin Smith, because I do want to hear more about Smith. But he is a super elite puck handler with an amazing hockey IQ. I like his game a lot. I do. He scored 44 points in 67 games. Very good for a defenseman. A solid offensive defenseman. The one knock on his game, like most others that fall down this far, is skating. You notice a theme here, folks. Skating is below par, but he's got amazing hands. If his feet can pick up speed, like, okay, I'm going to try to say this as succinctly as possible. If the speed of his skating can match the speed of his hands, he could wind up being the steal of the NHL draft in the third round. He could. If he can become even an average or an above average skater, then you're going to see a lot of teams kind of eat their words. This could wind up being a solid pick. Could he make the Ducks roster if he works on his skating and works on his speed? Yes. Could he wind up being one of those tweeners that goes between the NHL and the AHL? Also, yes. That wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing, but he's got just great creation, great moveset. He's got a really sweet fake slap shot into what I've heard as a heel-to-heel push-off. And what that means is he'll kind of like fake the slap shot. I'll go like this, kind of raise his stick a little bit, get right down, and just kind of push off and make either a perfect snipe shot or make an excellent pass. And he will push off, get to a different part of the ice. I mean, that's fine. That's really fine. He's got good, like, short bursts. Like, his skate work as far as, like, pushing off and, like, just kind of getting started is fine. Just got to improve that top speed. That's going to be the thing. You don't want anybody chasing other players, especially in a high-speed, high-skill league like the National Hockey League. So the defense has improved a lot. He almost missed the entire season back in 2023 due to injury, which kind of explains a little bit why his skating is still a little bit below par right now. I think if he's in perfect health and if he can just improve his skating by that much, this is going to be a great pick. He also likes to stretch the ice, not afraid to make the home run stretch pass. So again, this is someone that I was pretty high on, to be honest. So that's Tarin Smith at number 79. At number 100, Alexandre Blais. This is a pretty good pickup too. He's a center left winger. This one I think is also pretty solid for the Ducks, but could wind up being just a depth piece for the Gulls as well. Not a physical guy. 5'10", 150. So yeah, he's got a bit of a smaller stature. 5'10", a $150. Very hard to make the NHL with that height and that weight. Not many guys with that kind of height and weight, unless you're just a speedster. Now, he did score 84 points in 68 games in the Quebec League with Rimouski Oceanic. Rimouski, that team sounds familiar. Oh, yeah, anyway. Averaged above a point a game. Excellent skater. Could bulk up a little bit. Physicality is not there, but his hands are just as fast as his feet. That's good. Shooting could use some work, but he's got incredible hockey sense, great puck handling, excellent passer, definitely one of the premier playmakers in the Quebec League. As I mentioned, 84 points. Most of those were assists, 24 goals, 60 assists. He averaged an assist a game almost with Rimouski Oceanic. And he was kind of the go-to player for Rimouski in several ways. He scored 21 more points than his next closest teammate. He was easily the fastest guy on the ice several times over. Power play, he just commanded power play, and he made the perfect passes, got the perfect shots when he had to. He orchestrated the power play so well from that, I guess, left position that just looking at I've only seen like a couple of clips, I'll admit that, but just from what little bit I've seen, he's always got his eyes up. He's always kind of scanning the ice, looking around, waiting for the perfect pass. And I think I like that a lot about his game is he's always aware. The puck awareness is good. The spatial awareness is good. The awareness to look around and say, okay, this team is going to go here. But he does orchestrate it. He hates a stagnant offense. And I think the system that Rimouski had fit his needs. Just constant movement and elite vision in this draft. But I really do like the scanning around during the power plays and in general. So that's something that I just love a lot about his game. Exits are excellent. The retrievals could use some work, but he's got controlled entry, controlled exit, very excellent on the transition game. So once again, that is Alexandre Blais at number 100. We're going to take a time out here, head to the second intermission, and when we come back, we are going to talk about the last two picks that the Ducks made thanks to a trade. We'll get to that on the other side. Welcome back to Locked On Anaheim Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Once again, you're locked in with Jason JD Hernandez. Let's talk about the last couple of picks the Ducks made. And I didn't think they were going to make these picks, to be honest, because I'll admit, as soon as the Ducks made pick number 100, I did a little bit of research, looked up Alexandre Blais, liked what I saw. And then I realized the Ducks didn't have another pick until pick number 164. So that gave me a little bit of time to head down to the lobby again, see that Logan Thompson was still signing autographs at the time. Yeah, that's a whole different story, by the way, about Logan Thompson being traded during the draft just a half hour before he was signing autographs in the concourse. Oh, man, I can't believe that happened. So there was about 60 or so picks before the Ducks were to make their pick. Got back to my seat. Then I heard that horn from the Los Angeles Kings. Oh, okay. What's this about? The Kings are going to trade the Ducks pick? That's exactly what happened. The Kings acquired pick number 164 in exchange for picks number 182 to 214. So I thought the Ducks were only going to have one draft pick left. I was planning on leaving the floor early. in the 7th round because the Ducks didn't have a pick, but lo and behold, they do. So now let's talk about pick number 182. We'll go through these a little bit quickly. Pick number 182 is Austin Brnovich. This one's a fine pick. I mean, once you get down to the 6th and 7th round, you're kind of looking for depth pieces at this point and see if they can crack the San Diego Gulls roster. So that's where we're at. As far as Austin Brnovich is concerned, big body, 6'4", 200 plus pounds, left winger from the Madison Capitals of the USHL. Okay, so I was actually in Wisconsin recently. Yeah, it's too bad that the season was over. My sister lives out in Wisconsin. I'm hoping to visit her at some point during the winter so I can watch some UW Badgers hockey. But also, I got to check out some USHL hockey because you never know who you're going to find there. And Brnovich is just a great re-entry winger. Good vision, massive shots, skating. You notice a theme here, guys. Do you notice it? Yeah, I do. I mean, you can probably guess what the theme here is, right? A lot of these picks, not so good on the skating, with the exception of Alexandre Blais. A lot of these guys that they're drafting are not the best of skaters. So I hope the Ducks have a plan to improve all of these guys' skating. I really hope they do. But just as far as Brnovich is concerned, excellent passer. He did go undrafted in the previous draft in 2023. So because of that, he went full-time to the USHL and just dominated with the Madison Capitals. 71 points in 61 games. He was a 40-goal scorer in the USHL. Not a lot of guys score 40 goals in the USHL, but he did it. And now that his name finally got called in the draft, we can kind of figure out, okay, what's next for the young kid? Well, passing's good. Shooting is good. Just a terrific shot and great hockey IQ. Just the skating. And that is what one scout said was a quote-unquote major problem. Yeah, that's going to be tough to overcome, especially in a faster-moving league. So we'll see what he can do as far as improving his skating ability. Could his scoring game translate to the AHL? Possibly. He doesn't check a whole lot. When you're that big, maybe you should check a little bit better. But again, just great hockey sense, great puck skills. That's pretty much it. But still not a bad pickup. So Austin Brnovich at number 182. Then we go to pick number 214, one of the last picks in this year's NHL draft. And with pick number 214 in the 7th round, the Ducks decided to go with Daryl Oljanskis from Latvia. Now, I did some quick research. This is the first Latvian that the Ducks have drafted. Solid pickup. 29 points in 45 games for J20 National for AIK J20. Left-handed defenseman, 6'2", a buck 92. Yeah, 29 points in 45 games as a defenseman. It's very good. Just a solid two-way defenseman. Good offensive ideas. Aside from that, I mean, he's just a solid defenseman. Slot passing is good. Transition could use some work, but he does get everybody involved, and he is a two-way player. Defense is good. Yeah, just a fine player from Latvia. He did play in the World Juniors this year. Did pick up an apple on this one. And that's actually where I looked at highlights was from World Juniors and just saw the one apple that Oljanski's made. But, it's not a bad skater, not a bad shooter. Just terrific all around. A lot of these 7th round picks usually don't pan out, and it's very rare. I mean, very rare that 7th round picks make the NHL. And it's not outside of the realms of possibility for someone of his caliber to make the American Hockey League. But this really is a depth piece. We'll see if he can, cross over to America in the next couple of years. He's still got a bit of work to do, still a little bit raw. But once again, with 214, Daryl Oljanski. So just to round out the picks, Maxime Massé, Ethan Prozizin, Tarin Smith, I'm excited about, Alexandre Blais, Austin Bernovic, and Daryl Oljanskis. Those are the picks that the Ducks made in this draft. All right, there you go, folks. We're going to wrap it up right here. And once again, I just want to thank you all so much for tuning in. Thanks for your continued support. And don't forget, this podcast is free and available across all platforms, including Stitcher, Spotify, Odyssey, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, etc., etc. You can follow me on Twitter X at StimpyJD. The show's Twitter X is at LO_Ducks. And you can always send me your emails at lockedonanaheimducks@gmail.com. Once again, thank you all for your continued support. It is so greatly appreciated. For Locked On Anaheim Ducks, I'm Jason JD Hernandez saying have a great rest of the day. Please remember to be safe out there, be kind to one another, and Ducks fly together. Oh, yeah, folks, that was a good one.